There's lots of creatures in Ark that have been in major need of an update for years, and although Wildcard is really awful at updating these decade-old creatures, there's tons of amazing mods to fix a majority of these outdated tames. In this video, I'll cover the 15 best TLC creature mods Ark Ascended has to offer. With these mods, creatures are finally more balanced, historically accurate, and up to date for the first time in forever. All the names of these mods will be in the description, and there's links to all these mod pages on my Discord server. And without further ado, sit back, relax, and enjoy the list. At number 15, I have the Better Therizinosaur mod by Cyrus Creates. This mod adds an aberrant variant of the Therizino, which is really great, especially for aberration, because there's just a lack of really strong creatures. When you think about it, the strongest tameable creatures on this map are the Spino and the Megalo until you get to late game. So having access to the Therizino, which spawns primarily in the blue zone with this mod and sometimes in the green zone, is really nice. It's also worth noting that the color regions are slightly different on this than they are on the normal Therizino to make it more aberrant feeling, which is a really nice touch. I personally think it looks really good. On top of adding it to aberration, which is already a really great change, it also makes it even better as a farmer. It gives the Therizino multiple 50% weight reductions. The resources it reduces now are wood, thatch, and fiber, making it even better as a farmer than it already was. I don't necessarily think the Therizino is in need of any buffs, it is a really strong creature already, but having these extra weight reductions makes it way better, especially after the ASA changes recently with the auto harvest mode. Because now creatures that are farming do not stop farming when they're at half weight when they're on auto harvest. So if you're carrying a Therizino around, it's going to have way more time to farm, because the weight reductions basically mean your flyer is going to get encumbered a lot slower. Obviously this doesn't matter if you're on a Karkinos and you're carrying it around, but if you transfer the aberrant Therizino off the map, this does matter for certain flyers like the Quetzal, Wyvern, and Rhino Ignatha, which can all carry it. It's also more convenient to farm just on foot too, because you don't encumber yourself after 3 trees. It's only at number 15 because it's not a super big overhaul by any means. I don't really know if the Therizino actually needed a buff, and out of creatures in Ark, I don't think the Therizino is nearly as desperate for a change as a lot of others, but I am a fan of all the changes they made. At number 14, I have Reclamation Pseudomain by Amalgamaniac Gaming. He basically took aspects from both the Shadowmane and Pyromain and just threw them into one creature, aka the Pseudomain. Here's all the changes he did. For stats, they're equivalent to the Shadowmane. For damage, it's equivalent to the Pyromain. For the attack style, it's equivalent to the Pyromain. For the functionality, it's based off the Pyromain, which means you can transform it into a shoulder mount, as well as cook meat inside of its inventory. For the tame process, it's identical to the Pyromain, which is really good because I just hate the Shadowmane taming process entirely. In terms of diet, it's a pescivore now. For animations, they're mostly Pyromain based, but have a couple of animations like the sleeping and the swimming animations from the Shadowmane. The movement speed on land is identical to the Pyromain, and in the water, the movement speed is increased to the Shadowmane speed, and the Pseudomain is also able to get the Hydrated buff. They can also carry artifacts, which makes them even better in caves, and the Pseudomain can also be healed by fire attacks, which is pretty useful for stuff like the Lava Golem. On screen now you can see spawn regions for it, and it's worth noting that this doesn't replace all spawns for the Pyromains, and it will also not replace all spawns for the Shadowmains. It only replaces 50% of the spawns, so you can still pick if you'd prefer to have a Pyromain over the Pseudomain. I think these changes are pretty good. They are a little bit strong for sure, so they're not perfectly balanced by any means. But the main reason I like it is because you don't need to buy the Pyromain Fantastic Beast DLC to tame the Pseudomain or use it. This mod would be a lot higher than 14th on the list if it wasn't so overpowered. But in general, I like the idea of making it free to play. I like the idea of pulling mechanics and animations from the different types, picking out what you like the most. And I think if these got a stat nerf, they'd be an even better addition to the game. Also, this goes without saying because you've been seeing it the entire clip, but this thing looks so awesome. At number 13 is the Better Rock Golem by Shining. This entire mod just makes the rock elemental way stronger and super versatile. You can now adjust its size with a radial menu, you can make him really tiny or just keep it at normal size. The rock golem is now faster, the sprint speed is significantly higher than the vanilla speed. On top of a faster travel speed, you can also now attack way faster and you don't take fall damage. This mod also introduces 4 harvesting modes for it. The pickaxe mode, which boosts the metal, flint, and crystal collection of it. The hatchet mode, which boosts stone and sand and adds a 75% weight reduction to heavy resources. There's a no harvest mode, which is used for basic movement or combat. And there's a torpor mode, which adds a melee attack that can apply knockout torpor to most creatures, and it's a really strong ability. This version of the rock golem is also immune to bleed attacks. The rider is protected from all damage while on the back of it, including AoE projectiles like the poison wyvern spit. And this version of the rock golem can also enter boss fights, which is definitely too strong in my opinion, but it is really viable for most fights. Here's the thing about this mod. I love all the changes. I think the 4 harvesting modes specifically, and the fact that it's immune to bleed is really awesome. And I also don't mind the increased attack speed or the no fall damage. In my opinion though, there's a couple of issues here. First of all, entering boss fights is completely broken. This thing should not be able to go into boss fights at all. It does not make any sense, and it's completely unbalanced. The other main issue I have is the higher sprint speed. I'm okay with riders being immune to damage while on the back of this, but you should still be able to do AoE damage to them. Being immune to all forms of damage is ridiculously strong, especially in the PvP side of the game, so I never think these changes would get actually added to the main game. Also, the faster sprint speed is just pretty strong in general, in my opinion. I don't know why this is moving so fast now. I think increasing the movement speed is okay, but the amount they increased it by is just a really high amount. Overall, I love the changes. I think this giant rock is a lot more interesting with the mod, but it definitely needs to be toned down in my opinion to be more balanced with the main game. Most importantly, it should not be able to enter boss arenas at all. At number 12, I have the Better Ankylosaurus by Piper Down Mods. This mod is pretty simple, but I really like it. The Anky, when auto-harvesting, also targets crystal, obsidian, and stone resource nodes. There are significantly more resource weight reductions. These resource weight reductions include crystal, element ore, flint, gems, and obsidian. And this just pairs really well, especially with the new auto-harvesting changes they made to Ascended, where yet again, creatures can farm up until they're slot capped because there's no restriction at half weight anymore like there used to be when you're auto-farming. This means farming in single player is going to be so much more viable now, and pairing this new change with the Better Ankylosaurus mod makes it so much better and just way more convenient. While I was looking for mods for this video, I also found Kokitos' Element Gathering Ankylosaurus. This mod isn't a full TLC because it splits 50-50 with regular Ankies and these Ankies, but it basically allows you to farm element from basic rocks, and it also makes the Anky a faster swimmer. This allows it to farm ocean resources faster, and it makes keeping your tech-powered items charged a lot easier because you don't need to do boss fights to farm the element in the late game. This isn't super relevant if you don't have any of the tech engrams unlocked, but it is really important if you do have tech. This is situationally useful just because there's a lot of times when you really can't farm element on a map besides farming bosses, which is kind of tedious. But in my opinion, Ark is designed in a way that doesn't give you element in this way for a reason. So although it is a pretty cool mod that I wanted to showcase, I'm not including it in my official top 15. At number 11, I have Marnie Mod's Griffins by Marnie Mods. This mod contains two variants of the Griffins, and it's my favorite mod of the best flyer in Ark. Its appearance is essentially a hybrid between a snow owl's face and tail with a griffin's body. And there's a basic owl griffin, which is smaller in size and spawns in the jungles and the mountains. They're gendered, so you can breed these griffins just like the new ones in ASA. And they have a saddle that functions like an RG saddle, which is great for multiple reasons. It offers weight reduction on heavy resources, acts as a portable smithy, and it gives the griffin an armor rating, which makes it way more viable in many different situations. Part of the reason this is ranked lower on my list than in my creature mods video is because of how improved the griffins are in ASA now, because they're able to breed now and they're just a lot better than they were before. But due to the animation and cosmetic changes, adding a griffin hierarchy, and adding the utility of the smithy, weight, and armor reductions, I decided to put this on the list regardless. It's not a crazy change, the griffins aren't desperately in need of a TLC or anything, especially after Ragnarok Ascended, but the mod is awesome and I definitely recommend you check it out. At number 10, I have the Spinosaurus Redux by Jams, and this isn't the most necessary TLC change because the Spino has received a TLC in its history, but it does bring the Spino up to date even more and makes it so much more useful. First of all, he did some minor stat adjustments, including increasing its base HP from 700 to 900, and he also increased the base damage of the Spino. He increases the bipedal attack animation speed as well, which is solid. It just increases the power again of the Spino. And he implements the Baryonyx ability to deal 50% more damage towards water targets, and also heals the Spino 5% when it kills fish. These fish include all the basic fish you would imagine it including, as well as the anglerfish, eel, and manta. It also changes the Spino's diet to pescivore, which makes it no longer able to eat raw meat, only fish meat, which I think balances it back out a little bit with other creatures after the stat increases. One other nice feature it adds is that you can swipe and bite to insta-harvest corpses when you kill them, which makes it much faster to run around and maul things for meat. Some other small changes is that it now can spawn rarely on the rivers on Scorched Earth. Its eggs are classified as extra large, which means it's able to make exceptional kibble now. And now instead of fleeing at 40% HP, it flees at 15% HP, which is generally a pretty good change. The lower the HP before fleeing, the better in my opinion. Yet again, you don't really need a Spino TLC, the creature's great and it does serve a decent purpose in the game, but adding more features to it and changing it around to make it even more water-based is great. At number 9, I have the Dreadbeak by Kavaiden, and this is a mod for the Terror Bird. The Dreadbeak is basically a much improved Terror Bird. It's larger, it has a feathered neck, it has more color regions. It pulls back the old Terror Bird running animation because the creator says he thinks it's funny, which is totally fair. And it is a bit stronger, which makes it more viable in the PvE side of the game, but it's not so much stronger that it makes it totally OP in PvP. The use case in PvP for this creature is that you can run turret walls with it inside of caves, and even though it does get stronger with this mod, it really doesn't get so much stronger that it changes any super important interactions. So overall, the stat buff is pretty good here because it makes it a lot better in PvE. It's also able to pick up and carry smaller critters now, and it comes with a whole new roaring animation, as well as having custom sounds attached to it. It also has a custom saddle with better quality saddle BPs in yellow and red drops, and you can also find these in red cave drops as well as swamp yellow and red crates. It spawns mainly in the redwoods, but you can also find it in the jungles and sometimes in the plains. You tame it with superior kibble, and it's a simple knockout tame for now, but he does plan on changing this in the future. There's also plans on the page for more animations and sounds, and there is plans to tweak the aberrant variant in the future. I should have mentioned this earlier, there is an aberrant variant. But overall, this just adds more functionality to this creature, makes it look a lot better, and it's just what the Terror Bird needed to become more relevant. At number 8, I have the Sea Variants TLC by Dire7. This is a giant mod pack that does TLCs for so many different creatures. On screen now you can see the list of every single creature it changes. This mod just adds a ton more diversity to the map. It's also worth noting that the new variants don't replace any of the existing creatures, they just spawn alongside the vanilla creatures. The Sea variants don't really change your gameplay that much if you don't want them to, but there's a nice appearance improvement for them. There's added functionality for every single creature that there's variants for. And the list I showed earlier of the changed creatures has so many that were just in desperate need of changes. The Diplo, Packy Rhino, Dillo, Titanoboa, Quet, and Carbo all needed a ton of changes. And although this mod doesn't change a ridiculous amount of functionality for any of these creatures and probably could be built upon, having a small amount of changes to all of these is great. Other stuff like the Compy and Saber were also really nice to see changes for, but those weren't as necessary in my opinion. This mod pack also adds dominant creatures, which are basically different versions of alphas. There's a couple of variants including a Therizino, RG, Megalodon, and Aberrant Spino, and there's some unique particle effects, custom loot tables, and spawn at the same rate as Alpha Rexes, which is 2%. This mod covers a ton of creatures that have needed changes for years, but there's no denying that there's plenty of other tames that need updates as well. Leave a comment down below with the creature you think Ark needs to update the most, and if this video gets 1,000 likes, I'll make an entire video proposing changes for Ark's most out-of-date creatures. Also, if you could subscribe to help me reach 20,000 by the end of August, I'd greatly appreciate it. At number 7, I have the Reborn Kentrosaurus by the Other Viper. This mod is really simple, but it's so useful for the Kentro. The most important thing to note here is that it adds saddles for Kentros. This is something they've needed for the Kentro for years to make it more viable, and although the saddle only gives a 10 armor rating, which is below average, it's still far more than nothing. It's worth noting that this saddle doesn't actually make the Kentro rideable, but it makes it a lot more viable in different environments like boss fights. This saddle is unlocked at level 48, and you can actually unlock higher quality saddles through killing high-level wild Kentros. They've also brought a pack buff overhaul to the Kentro. It adds a 5% damage resistance per pack member, and this damage resistance stacks with the already existing 5% melee buff. This results in stronger, tankier, and more powerful Kentros, which is a great change because this creature's been completely useless as a tame for years. The only utility it had was Raging Giga sometimes because it was funny, but it was really never a viable meta pick. At number 6 is another mod by the Other Viper, and this time it's the Reborn Direwolf. This mod is similar in nature to the Kentro mod. It adds a saddle that's craftable level 40, offering 15 armor rating. This is yet again lower than the normal saddle rating, but it is higher than the Kentros, and I think this is balanced because the Direwolf needs the armor more. Wild Direwolves are also able to drop higher quality saddles and blueprints for the saddles. The Alpha is now able to howl, which adds a sprinting buff to the pack, which is really cool and exactly why I put it above the Kentro on my list. The modder has also removed the headshot multiplier from this creature for both the wild and the tamed wolf, making it a lot tankier, as well as making it a bit more difficult to tame, which is fair. The Direwolf is already an excellent caving mount, so adding the saddle armor to it, as well as the ability to boost the speed of other Direwolves in your packs and get higher tier saddle BPs for it, makes it so much better and really fun to use. I will say though, if this were to be implemented into the main game, the Sabertooth would probably need an HP buff just to make it more viable as a cave mount because the Direwolf would be a lot better than it. The modder who made both the Reborn Kentro and the Reborn Direwolf has other TLC mods as well. Another one I really like is the Aloe, but I'm not going to go and talk about it again because it's pretty similar in terms of changes. On screen now you can see the entire mod page list of what's added for the Aloe mod. I'll count this as an honorable mention for the video because I do like this change, but I don't think it's as needed as the Kentro or the Direwolf one. This definitely would make my top 15, but I don't want the list to be too repetitive with the exact same changes to multiple creatures. Before I get into the top 5, I'm going to cover some honorable mentions really quick. First, I have Kaluga's Appalachian Denizens by Kaluga Studios. This entire mod pack basically just adds a ton of variants for pre-existing creatures that makes them more historically accurate. It also adds a couple of new creatures, but I won't get into that for this video just because that's not really the point of the video. It has the Appalachian Mammoth, Megalosaurus, Woolly Rhino, Dire Bear, Parasaur, Iguanodon, Carno, Cerado, Gigantoraptor, and Calicotherium. All of these getting visual overhauls is just pretty nice. They really don't add that much to the game in terms of gameplay mechanics, which is why it wasn't on my list, but I do think it's a pretty neat mod and it makes a lot of the game look a lot better. My other honorable mention is Shad's Critter reworks by the real Shadowlos. And this mod didn't make the main list just because it's not really a TLC mod entirely, but it is super convenient. What it does is basically apply a couple of quality of life changes to every creature in the game. When you install the mod, it also doesn't ruin anything you already have, so if you already have vanilla tames, don't worry, you're totally good there, and you can just commit a dino wipe but destroy wild dinos in the console to get all the Shad's creatures to spawn in instead. This mod allows for most creatures to have an ability to hold down left click now to just do a normal attack all the time instead of having to spam left click. It also increases the stamina per level when you're upgrading flyers, and it adds a 20% speed increase to flyers when you fully imprint them, which is super nice. It's not on the list because there's not a specific creature it's targeting, but this is a nice mini TLC to every creature in the game, and it's especially nice for flyers. At number 5, I have Big Al's Karka rework by Big Al Swagbob. This introduces a smaller version of the Karka, and it's scaled more to the size of a T-Rex, which is more historically accurate. They've reworked the model for it and the animations as well, and they also balanced the blood rage ability by nerfing it a bit to make it more balanced in comparison to the T-Rex in terms of power. It's also able to enter boss arenas now due to its decreased power, and it's not super OP for boss fights, but it's definitely still a very strong choice. The idea for this mod is to basically be an ideal replacement for the Karka that's already in the game to make it more balanced compared to the Rex. This has been a pretty big issue for a lot of dinosaur-loving Ark fans for a while, the fact that the Rex is not as strong as the Giga or the Karka, so I thought it was good enough to be put in 5th place. At number 4, I have the newest mod on this list, and this mod is the Paleo Ark Evolution Dangerous Depths mod by Up From The Depths. This mod introduces the Evo Moza with new models, animations, and attacks. The Paleo Ark mods in general are always the highest quality mods in this entire space from my experience. They're at least incredibly polished, generally well balanced, and very interesting new mechanics on creatures and really nice overhauls for visuals as well. This mod offers an Evo Mosasaur platform saddle and tech saddle, and it just looks amazing. They basically have 2 sets of this mod, and the one I'm talking about here is specifically the underwater creatures. The next one they plan to release is the Elasmosaurus, which is a Plesiosaur TLC, and it says on their mod page that it should have already been released, but it seems like the last time it was updated was before that date, so I think they're still working on it. With that being said, I'm excited for the Plesiosaur to get a TLC, and they also have other creature TLCs planned as well. These other TLCs include the Megalodon, Liapleurodon, Dunkleosteus, Basilo, and more, so I'm really excited to see what they come up with. This Paleo Ark for the Mosa just doesn't introduce enough new content for it to go higher than 4 for now, but this absolutely will be higher on the list eventually. Speaking of Paleo Ark, at number 3 I have the other Paleo Ark mod, which is the Evolution Apex Predators mod, also by Up From The Depths. This mod introduces the Evo Rex and the Evo Giga. These bring new models, animations, and attacks just like before. This is probably the most popular TLC mod in the entire game, and it continues expanding with more creatures. On screen now you can see every single planned creature they have for this mod pack. It's absolutely awesome how many they have planned. The main thing I really like though is the realism it adds to the Giga. It has a walking crouch stance, which makes it basically go stealth, and this makes it more of a stalking predator. It also allows the Giga to fit into the tech cave on the island, which is really awesome. It just makes the Giga a lot more powerful. It makes the Rex a lot better as well, more viable, more up to date. They both look amazing. It's yet again really polished. And for me personally, I just love this mod because it really makes the Giga feel like it felt 10 years ago in 2015 when it was absolutely devastatingly strong and super cool. Having all these new abilities, being a little bit stronger, not raging as often, it's just a great variation of the creature. It makes it so much stronger, and I just love it. I do realistically think it's a little bit too strong, and the fact that it's not super balanced is why I put it 3rd place on the list. But if you're looking for a polished mod to improve on some older creatures, some classics in Ark, this is the go-to. One more thing I forgot to mention earlier in the Paleo Moza section is that you can actually convert your Paleo to vanilla versions of the creatures in a radial menu. So you can go back and forth between the Evo Moza, Rex and Giga, and the normal Moza, Rex and Giga. At number 2, I have the Improved Phoenix by Shiny Gaddy. This changes a lot about the Phoenix. First of all, for the Wild Phoenix, it makes the Wild Phoenix now aggressive and more of a threat in the wild. The taming process is faster and more forgiving, and it can spawn with or without heat waves, making the taming much easier in general. The tamed Phoenix, on top of already being a forge from the vanilla game, now has a massive weight reduction on metal ingots, charcoal, and wood now, which is so nice. It functions as a grinder, which can grind down for an 80% metal return. It has natural armor, reducing damage taken, which is a great touch. Riders can wield weapons on the back of it now while mounted. It doesn't lose food while it's in its charge mode. It can be converted back to the vanilla Phoenix with a radial menu, and breeding is now possible with a gender addition to the creature. Just so many great changes to an amazingly cool creature already. It really makes it worth using a lot more of the time, and it's just so much easier to tame now. It's really a great addition to the game if you play Scorched Earth. And last but certainly not least, at number 1, I have ZCI's Better Tapejara by ZCI5250. This mod just adds amazing changes to the Tapejara, making it one of the best flyers in the game. This mod increases the flight speed of the Tapejara by 50%, makes it so the Tapejara can't take fall damage. They have a persistent rider functionality on it, which basically means if you crash while you're on the back of it, you're going to respawn on the back of the Tapejara and not fall off. When you're riding it, you can use weapons while you're the rider. You don't have to be in the passenger seat to use weapons on the back of this now. It can carry creatures up to Parasaur size now, which is a little bit unrealistic, but is cool. Adding the Parasaur functionality is almost definitely intentional though, because you can use it to fly around and look for hidden Perlovias around the map now. Because after the speed buff, this thing is really fast. It's now an omnivore and can harvest berries and fiber as well with a bite. It has a Scorched Earth variant now, which is pretty cool. And there's a 10% chance of baby Tapejaras spawning in the wild with parents, which is a unique feature. There's no other flyer that has babies in the game. Overall, this is just my favorite mod in the entire game for TLCs of a creature. I think this should be implemented tomorrow. Well, that's my list. Thank you to all my members for supporting the channel. Remember to get this video to 1,000 likes if you want to see a full TLC proposals video. And if you want to see even more amazing modded creatures and add them to your game, check out this video linked on screen now where I rank my favorite 20 creature mods in Ark Ascended. See you there. Peace.